Alright, friends, we are back for another Call of Dragons video. In this particular video, gonna address a few things, what's going on, how I'm feeling, things like that, talking about some of the stuff that's been going on in the game. I'm sure y'all have noticed, or those of y'all that do watch my videos, I appreciate it, that I have not posted a video for Call of Dragons in, probably almost 6 days now. And there's a little bit going into that. The reason being, we'll go over that. But we're also going to go over, am I quitting? What's going on? How I'm feeling about the current state of the game? A few things like that. So, first thing, let's go over how I feel about the current state of the game. Do I think the game is dying? Things like that. First off, do I think the game itself is actually dying? No, I don't. However, I do feel like it is losing a lot of its player base for several factors. One of them being, biggest thing being, is repetition. The game itself, even in later games, is just recycling a lot of older events. Alliance Mobilization, Breakthrough, Reach for the Stars, Song of Solidarity. I mean, like an event like these daily events like this do absolutely nothing for me. Nothing. It's a waste of time for me because most of what I have is already maxed out, and those events don't give me enough rewards or engagement for me to want to actually try to complete them. Now, some of them I will complete just for doing stuff every day. Like, this, gathering resources. What is this? Like, building? I need to build, actually. Let me come here. I'll just upgrade a road. But, it's things like that. It's a lot of repetition for not a lot of rewards. To also with, in terms of KVKs, it's the same thing, the same maps, and things like that. And then with the way that the matchmaking works, it's a lot of the same teams fighting each other. Even in the upper tiers, you've got like EIS and Echo, which we will talk about them as well, that are always fighting each other in the same KVKs. Us, for example. We are fighting. Now we do have newer alliance here that we've never fought before, but our opponents, they are our allies. That's really cool that they just added that. But our opponents, which are over here, I'm sorry, those are our allies. Our opponents, which are up here and in the bottom corner, which is TK and DN, we have fought them or some semblance of their alliance and players from their alliance since Season 3. We are now on what would be equivalent to Season 5 for us, and we have fought the same players now nearly for 3 seasons. So it's just a lot of repetition, a lot of the same thing over and over and over again, which for me has attributed to burnout. I'm getting not necessarily tired of the game because I do enjoy the game and I do enjoy, the gameplay and how the game's set up and the actual fighting in KVK, but I am getting tired of some of the repetition. It's like playing other games like, take the game Skyrim, for instance, if people have played those. That game's been out, 10 plus years, and every time I play it, I find something new that I haven't found before, but, it's the same thing, and so you'll play a game like that for really, really hard for a certain amount of time, and then you'll put it down and don't play it again for a while. And then you may end up coming back to it, which is what I've done several times over the course of this game. I've been playing it since the game released. I think it was March or April of 2023. Started playing it when it released. Played for a while and quit. Came back, played for a little while again, and then quit. And then now I'm back again for a third time. And I keep coming back because it's a very fun game. It's something I really do enjoy playing. I really am. I'm happy playing it. I like the camaraderie playing it. With a lot of the friends and whatnot that you make playing the game. But again, it's very repetitive. Which is coming into Echo and EIS. I think them disbanding also, on top of the decorations that were added, played a factor into me not being on recently for probably the last week or so, not very much at least, because of the, how do you say, the viewpoint of the game. First off, when decorations got released, I was not quite happy about it. It's not that I don't like being able to buy more stuff, but it's the way they were implemented. It was implemented in a way that is purely pay to win. My decorations, I have not spent very much money on it at all. Maybe $100 total since they've been implemented. But it's essentially, it's so like, okay. First off, let me say this. I understand that games like this are pay to win games. Obviously, I've spent a good amount of money on this game, as you can tell by my main account. But with that being said, there comes a point where that's all it is. There has to be a balance. There has to be enough engagement to keep those free-to-play players and those lower-spend players engaged in the game, and your high-spend player as well, so that they stick with the game. When it gets to the point where, I'm at now, the only thing really that I got to look forward to is KVK. And then, with them putting the decorations out in a way that they're implemented, it's in a fashion that, I already had these decorations here. Already had them. I've had them from other events, and they were just put in my city, like this one right here too. They were just put in the city as purely a cosmetic thing that I already had them. And then the way they implemented the decorations is essentially you're paying a lot of money for not a whole lot of, a lot of money for an insane amount of stats, but I'm not really getting anything new. I've already had the loungers. I've already had all the decorations essentially. So now all I'm doing is just paying money for stats. It's not like I've unlocked a new troop or I've gotten a new hero or something tangible that I can touch or use. It is strictly paying for stats. That's all it is. And with the cost of it is insane. It's very, very expensive and can only be, at least as of right now, obtained through purchasing them. Which means your free-to-play player base and your lower spend player base, which makes up the vast majority of this game, is left in the dark. And there's no way that they can compete with the amount of stats that those decorations can give when they're maxed out. Which brings us to another subject, is migration. Now, I do think migration is good for the game, so that you don't have an account that you've spent a lot of money on that gets stuck in a dead server. However, what I don't agree with is me being in a server that is in server 640, and being able to have a player migrate into our server or our server bracket that we would be fighting against in KVK that is from server, say, 40 or 45, for instance. That player who has had a lot longer in the game to play, to max out heroes, things like that, it offers an unfair advantage to the average player that's going to be in our player bracket. but it offers a major advantage to the alliance that receives that player. And I think that no player that is that old of an account should be able to migrate into essentially a server that is just entered into Season of Strife 1. I don't think it's a fair advantage. It's fun for the player because now they get to come in and dominate against most other players because they've had the time to max out their account. However, it's not fun against pretty much everybody else that has to fight against them. And so that's something too, again, that's part of the state of the game that I don't agree with, that I don't like. Um, I don't think it's good for the long term growth of the game, or for player retention, being able to keep your main player base, which is going to be your lower spend players, or and your free to play players. Because what's going to happen to them is that they're going to get the Season of Strife, and then they're going to have players like that migrate in, and they're not going to be able to compete, and they're either going to quit or they're going to migrate out and leave to a smaller server, until again that smaller server is small enough that the bigger players start migrating into there, and it's just going to be a revolving cycle. So again, I think that the decorations needs to change. I don't think, obviously, they're not going to get rid of them. They're here. They're most likely here to stay, and we've got to deal with them. However, I do hope that they implement some kind of balancing issues for them. I don't have the solution for it. I don't know what they should do. Offer new, okay. For instance, offering new events that we don't already have, but new events that can give us the decoration tokens for the decorations. Not the same old events that are recycled and just adding tokens into them. Come up with some new events that would offer some more engagement for players to do, that will allow us to be able to grind those out for the ones that can't spend and get them immediately. Again, one thing that they can do is put them, or let me say, are they in here? Okay, they're not. Add them into the VIP shop. Put them in here so that we could, those of us that have high VIP can, get them. Maybe like somewhere around VIP 12 or VIP 14, something like that. Put them in the shop, so that even the older free-to-play accounts should be somewhere around VIP 12, especially if they're in a pretty active alliance. Add them in, do something like that. Bring in some new events that will, keep the players engaged and keep player retention, and even bring in new players and give them a chance to be able to compete. Also, if we're going to have decorations, make the purple decorations actually worthwhile. Obviously, they're not going to be able to compete with your legendary decorations, but a purple decoration completely maxed out gives me 2% attack and 2% defense, and it starts at 0.1 or 0.3. I mean, that why would I even invest in this? Why? It's not worth my time whatsoever to max this out. So make it more worthwhile to me. Fix the migration, or take it back to where you can't have these super old accounts migrating into brand new Season of Strife kingdoms, because it offers an unfair advantage to a large majority of the player base. So we got to find out a way to handle that, to deal with that. And I think going into Echo and EIS, which are two of the biggest alliances in the entire game, they represent what some would consider like the pinnacle of, warfare in this game. And to have players like that quit for, many different reasons. Some for the decorations because they're not happy with the state of the game. Some for real life. some for both. It just offered them, maybe they've been thinking about quitting for a while and that just gave them the door out. For whatever reason, to have alliances like that disband could go both ways. Okay, so it could be bad for the game because it could show new players that if the main alliances are disbanding, it could be a bad look. But at the same time, it could be good for the game and actually help out in matchmaking long term because it could spread out those players to other servers and help with matchmaking and help level the playing field out and help with having more alliances that are higher power instead of having two or three that are insane power. Because once you get to the power that those alliances are at, there is no other alliance that you can fight against that's going to offer you competition. You're going to be fighting against the same three or four alliances over and over and over again because there is nobody else to match you with. Or what's going to happen is you're not going to be able to find a match because there's no one to match you with, and you're going to have players sit there and not having anything to do for 2 or 3 weeks because there's no one to match them with. Or another option is they do get matched with lower tier alliances, and those lower tier alliances are going to have to hope and pray that they get on their Diplo side and actually have a chance to win. Or if they don't, and those big alliances try to 1v3 or 1v2 and then end up losing, then it looks bad on the big alliances because now they've lost. So, I mean, it's just, it could be good. It could be bad. But I'm not going to lie if I don't say that it hasn't played into how I'm currently feeling about the game. Which brings me to my next question. Am I quitting the game? No, I don't think at this point I am ready to quit. However, I won't lie and say that I haven't thought about it. But I do think that I do still enjoy the game enough to play. I do think that the game still has a lot of really good potential. And I do think that at its current state, it is teetering on the edge. But I think that it's not so far gone that I still don't want to play it. However, it is in a current state to where I don't think I really want to spend as much as I have been spending on it. That being said, I'm not saying that I won't spend some, but it's going to be much, much less than what I'm spending or what I was spending now. And so for those of you that, watched my videos, I need to put those on, that watched my videos for the simple fact of watching me, spin wheels and things like that, I do apologize about that. Who knows, maybe if they get some balancing things fixed, I may come back and continue spending. But for now, I'm not saying I'm going to go free to play, but I will be doing, monthlies and dailies and maybe occasionally spending on events. But outside of that, I won't be spending like I used to spend. At least until the game gets back to a point that is more agreeable to how I'm feeling, and that it shows me that the devs are paying attention to the community. And whatnot, and that they are going to continue supporting the game, and the game is going to continue growing. Because right now I do feel it is in a delicate situation, and like I say, I'm not to where I want to quit yet. But I am feeling some burnout from the game, from the same events over and over again, and from fighting the same the same alliances that I fight, or some semblance of them from merging together or whatnot, over and over and over and over again. The same people for like the last 3 seasons, or probably the last 5 or 6 months of my life, and it's repetitive. And even though it's fun, and those individuals have put up great wars and great fights, and I've enjoyed them, it's repetitive. And I don't have anything new to look forward to. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And so, I need to see some change. I need to see something that's a bit different because right now I am getting burnt out, very, very much so. Um, and so you may see me. I may not be posting as many videos here quite as often as I was. With that being said, I'm not quitting, but I am going to go into more of a casual role for now. I keep playing, going to keep playing on the restart, going to keep having fun, and I'll keep posting videos, but it's going to be more of the fights and just for fun and whatnot. And but with that being said, I do appreciate each and every one of y'all that's been with me on this journey to start this YouTube channel. It has grown much faster than what I expected. I hope it continues to keep growing. I would eventually like one day maybe to get to doing it full time. And who knows? I do plan to keep playing other games. And if y'all do like other games, please feel free to check those out as well. But with that being said, I am going to end it off here. But before we end it off, I am going to go ahead and pull for an exemplar. Again, I do have enough saved up here to be able to do one more pull. Now, I do have one pull, and I am, not on this pull, but the next one, I am guaranteed to get my Dragon's Fate. However, I would love to get it now. And so, with that being said, let's see what we get. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Oh, what a crock of shit. You already have this exemplar and it has been converted to another emblem. Ah. So I did go to pity. I do got 2. I need 4 more. But at least the good news is the next 4 that I get. Damn. 200. Damn, that ain't worth. See that? That is not worth $200. Not even close. Yeah, I mean, 4 emblems and 60 regular keys. I don't need anything in those keys. And though, I mean, that ain't enough resources. That is not worth it to me. Anyway, with that being said, I do appreciate each and every one of y'all. I do appreciate those of y'all that have stopped by and watched this video with me. If you did enjoy this video or found something useful or just enjoyed hanging out with me, please consider leaving a like and a sub, maybe even a comment on the video. It does mean more than you know. Love y'all, appreciate y'all, and I will see y'all in the next one.